All right, welcome to the October 17th, 2024 regular Board of Education meeting. We're on item 1, open session, call to order and roll call. Superintendent, will you call roll?
Absolutely. Mr. Clark? Ms. Larrett?
Here.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Here.
Mr. Reed? Mr. Huey?
Here.
Please note for the record, Mr. Clark and Mr. Reed are absent.
Thank you. That brings us to item B, announcement of items to be discussed in closed session. In a moment, we'll head into closed session where we will discuss any of the following. Item A, student matters. B, employer-employee relations. C, conference with legal counsel. D, conference with real property negotiators. Or E, personnel matters. Public comments for closed session agenda items only will be given time for that right now. I don't see any in-person public comments. We have none online. In that case, we'll be heading into closed session, and we'll be back at open session at 6 p.m. All right, welcome back to the open session of the October 17th, 2024 regular Board of Education meeting. We are on to item 4, open session. We'll start with our land acknowledgement and pledge of allegiance. Start with our student board members.
As the Folsom Cordova Unified School District, we acknowledge that our administrative facilities and schools occupy the unceded territory of the Nishnawin and Miwok, the original people of the skies, land, and waters, where we work and learn.
We also recognize the presence and ancestral stewardship of the Nishinan ancestral tribes, the Esto, Notumuse, the Nisim, Pewanan to the north,
And the Miwok ancestral tribes, the Akumne, the Kasumne, the Hopumne, and the Makulumne to the south along the Great Sacramento River system since time immemorial.
We understand that this land upon which our institutions are built was once flourishing with natural resources and sustained by the ancestral knowledge and practices of these indigenous communities. We acknowledge the injustices of colonialism and attempted genocide that have impacted these communities and recognize the resilience of their descendants who continue to thrive today.
In our daily endeavors of teaching, learning, leadership, and community engagement, we commit to supporting, respecting, and honoring their culture, traditions, and lifeways.
We pledge to work together for the evolving vision of the Miwok and Nishinan, especially all future generations.
All right, thank you, board. And if you'll please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. On to item 4C, broadcast statement. A broadcast and recording is being made at the direction of the board, and the broadcast may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board Policy 1313 promotes mutual respect, civility, and orderly conduct among employees, parents, and the public. We will treat staff, parents, and members of the public with respect and ask the same in return. If any member of the public uses obscenities or communicates in a demanding, loud, insulting, and/or demeaning manner, the board will calmly and politely admonish the person to communicate civilly. Public comments during board meeting are an important component of public engagement and transparency. Members of the public will not be permitted to yield their speaking time to another member of the public. No written public comments were received prior to the board meeting. Per the Brown Act, the board is not allowed to enter into a two-way discussion on any matter not on the agenda. And item D, roll call. Superintendent, will you call roll?
Absolutely. Ms. George?
Here.
Mr. Merrill?
here.
Mr. Clark? Ms. Larrett?
Here.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Here.
Mr. Reed? Mr. Huey?
Here.
Please note for the record that Mr. Clark and Mr. Reed are absent.
All right, thank you. On to item 5, reporting out of closed session. We do not have any items to report out of closed session today. Brings us to item 6, adoption of agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll move.
Motion by Ms. Larrett. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Merrill. Superintendent?
Ms. George?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Huey?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. And on to item 7, agenda consent. All items listed on the consent agenda will be acted upon by one motion without discussion. Should any trustee or other person request that any item be considered separately, that item will be pulled for discussion and action. I don't see any in-person comments for agenda consent items. Are there any online? No. So unless a board member would like to remove an item, do we have a motion to approve agenda consent?
All motion.
Motion by Ms. Lofthouse. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. George. Superintendent?
Ms. George?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you. And Superintendent, I believe we do have an announcement. or
Yeah,
two.
we have two acknowledgements. First, I'd like to say thank you to April Phillips, who was just confirmed as a parent to be a new member of our Community Advisory Committee. I know April's there in the back. Thank you so much, April. Let's give her a round of applause. It's a really important role in getting feedback from our community as a member of the CAC. And then I'd like to invite Jose. You're on the spot, my man. You have to come up here real quick. I'm going to say a few words while you're making the journey. So, Jose, the board just approved Jose to be a manager of the maintenance and operations team. We're really pleased to announce that Jose Delgadillo as the maintenance and operations manager for the M&O department. Mr. Delgadillo has been an employee of Folsom Cordova Unified since May of 2012. He was initially hired as a building and grounds utility worker for Vista del Lago High School. In 2018, he became a maintenance mechanic 1, which afforded him the experience to collaborate with the team and drive operational excellence. Mr. Delgadillo's strong creative problem-solving approach and exceptional customer service skills set him apart from his peers. Soon thereafter, Jose was presented with the opportunity to become a maintenance mechanic 2. In this role, Jose has shown creative solutions, overseen many maintenance projects, and collaborated with peers to improve operational effectiveness. Mr. Delgadillo brings a dynamic blend of leadership and commitment to the M&O team. With over 20 years of experience in various maintenance trades, Jose has demonstrated a skill set that is well suited to serve FCUSD. So I'd like to give Jose a warm welcome to the team. And Jose, do you want to say a few words, sir?
Well, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, and then, just let you know that I'm humble. I am honored, and, I'm really excited to be part of the maintenance and operations team as a manager now, and then I'm here to drive the team to do many more projects and, to provide a good service for our students and staff in our district.
Thank you so much, Jose. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Congratulations.
Right. And then that's it. Those two. Okay, thank you. We'll move to item 8, special presentations. I believe we have no presentations from either our students or our staff, so we'll go to item 9, public comment. Time will be given to speakers at the discretion of the board chairperson. The law allows the public to address the board on any matter not on the agenda, but the law prohibits actions by the board on non-agenda items. We have a few in-person public comments. We'll start with Faith Smith, followed by Earl Smith. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Faith Smith. Last board meeting, I was extremely upset about the informational for auditions for advanced classes. To list the informational with that title is false information. When you look at the informational, it specifically talks about the Visual and Performing Arts Program, VAPA. But that's false too, because when you read it, it specifically talks about music ensembles. Not digital art, not drama, not technical theater, not video production, not visual literature, and not art, which are all included in the VAPA program at Folsom High School. Yet, it only talks about music ensembles. And then to say that the auditions are for advanced classes is false too. Jazz band and jazz choir are music ensembles and require an audition, but they are not advanced classes. There is not a class you can enroll in prior in order to get into the class. There is no prerequisite, but every other VAPA class has a prerequisite. I have been enrolled in Drama 1 without an audition, and afterwards you move up to Drama 2, and so on. So why are the jazz classes an exception? Why is there an audition for these classes? There is only one jazz choir at Folsom High School. There are 2 jazz bands, Jazz Band A and Jazz Band B. And you would think that Jazz Band B would be a prerequisite for Jazz Band A, or that anyone who auditions could be in it, but that's not the case. I know many people who have been denied from being in Jazz Band B. Concert band and concert choir are not prerequisites either. And these classes do not prepare students for a jazz audition because they teach classical music. These 2 genres are extremely different in rhythm and technique. So when you say that a student must audition to be in a jazz class, really what you're telling the student is that you need to go and find a music teacher and pay them money in order to learn, in order to be in my class. But I thought a class is a place for learning, a teacher teaching you. Clearly, it's not like that for the jazz program at Folsom High School. I talked to Mr. Huber after the last board meeting, and I asked him about how an audition can be held for a class that is not advanced. Jazz choir specifically. He told me, well, you can be in concert choir, which is exactly what Miss Williams told me after my last audition, my third audition. So I told him how the UCLA Herb Albert School of Music admissions officer came to American River College that week. She said that no one can audition with classical music for jazz studies and the other way around. So how can you say that that's an equivalent or even a prerequisite when it won't teach you any of the right techniques or even the same harmonies? I'm being denied experience and being set up for failure for when I have to do my college audition. Miss Williams' actions are definitely not a coincidence either. She teaches at a college, so there is no way she does not know this information. Not only has she been denying me, but also staff try to back her up on it. So clearly, this school is still not preparing students for what they want to do after high school. You're pushing us to do things that will only set us up for failure. After I told Dr. Huber about what the UCLA admissions officer said, he proceeded to tell us that he is not in charge of this topic. But for the past 3 years, he has been acting like he is. So why didn't he direct us to the right person before? But then he says the person in charge only became in charge as of last year. So when our problem started, he was in charge and yet never helped. Mr. Swanson, you came over to help us figure out this issue, and I appreciate that. But you mentioned that you cannot change a student's grade that was given by a teacher. But how can I have a grade when I'm not in the class yet? I'm not enrolled in that class during an audition. I've never been allowed to be enrolled in that class. You also mentioned that I should move on. How can I move on when the situation is not fixed? I will not live the rest of my life knowing that this school is ignoring students and that there are people in this district who are not doing their jobs. When you all discussed the informational last board meeting, only one board member spoke up, and that was Mrs. Lofthouse. She asked a good question about if there are students being denied from classes and where they will go, what classes they will take in order to learn that skill, which is exactly what my situation is about. But yet no one else talked about it. You all know my situation, at least to the extent that you could have said something. Why would you not speak up when you are a board member? Do you not care? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Next speaker is Earl Smith, followed by Gabrielle Edinla.
After that, I'm proud of my daughter. I grew up in Anaheim. I went to Anaheim High School. It's very similar to Folsom. I worked at the Anaheim Police Department. I've met lots of discrimination there. I shaved, and I'm showing myself to YouTube what I look like when I put on a hat, shave, and I'm going to jazz choir with Faith. I look young. I'm blessed that way, but I'm 46. I'm also a PK. You don't know what a PK is? I'm a pastor's kid. Grew up in church. My grandfather was also a pastor of a mega church in San Francisco in Hunters Point. And he married my grandmother, who was Russian Jew. The black church kicked them out. They moved to Huntington Beach, which in 1976, one of the neighbor kids, or two of the neighbor kids, they were brothers, took one of my uncles and tied him to a cross to the front yard and set him on fire. They were found not guilty. Why is that relevant today? Because when I have been in meetings, people tell me, I just don't like the answer that I'm given. It's not that. It's that I know what the law says. And people are choosing to ignore it. So I looked up the Ed Code, 49066. You cannot influence a teacher to change a grade. However, when a student is not enrolled in the class, and you call a class an advanced class, for instance, AP Math, if the student doesn't take AP Math, they take regular math. So where is the regular jazz choir? Where is the regular jazz band? That's why I make the statement of the jelly beans. Just like in the South, guess how many jelly beans are in the jar, and then you can vote. You made a great point. What about the autistic student? Or the student who's gone through emotional trauma and can't emotionally deal with an audition? And you tell that student you can't study jazz. That's my culture. I don't see many Black people in this district. You're denying people from learning my culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Oh, one last thing. The audition thing that was posted, it doesn't say anything about denying students, just the audition. I'm not saying not have the audition. I'm saying just have a regular class that kids don't make it to your called advanced class. Put them in the regular class.
Thank you. And next speaker, Gabrielle, forgive me, I'm having trouble reading the last name, Edinlau?
Oh, jeez. Good evening, board and superintendent. My name is Gabrielle Ednilau, and I'm here with CalFresh Healthy Living. And if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Laura Quinones. I'm the program supervisor for the CalFresh Healthy Living program here in Sacramento.
Yeah, so I'm a nutrition educator, and we are here to tell you about our program funded by CalFresh Healthy Living, which is federally funded. And we are nutrition educators, simply educating K through 12 and pre-K throughout Sacramento County. So we work currently with a lot of schools within Elk Grove Unified School District, and we wanted to come here to tell you guys today about what we do and hopefully get our program noticed by you guys, and hopefully in the future maybe approved to be in your schools. We have Cooking Academy, which teaches 4th grade students knife skills and cooking skills. So they work with real knives and skillets to learn everyday skills about cooking and how to implement that in their own homes. We also have a gardening program within different age ranges. So within the school day, we're able to teach the children how to garden and the importance of fruits and vegetables within their diet. We also have physical activity that we're able to help implement within classrooms, simply because we know that in today's age, technology takes over physical activity within a child's day. But most importantly today, I wanted to talk about Up For It, which is a workbook with about nutrition and health, and it can be used supplementally within 4th and 5th grade classrooms, and I'm able to provide guest lessons for these classrooms as well as taste testings. So we have folders for you today to know about our workbook and our program. And if you guys are interested and have any questions, you guys are more than welcome to contact us. And we hope to be working with you guys in the future or within the schools in the future. And then if anything else you want to add. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Mr. Martin right there would love to take the folders from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, that's it for our in-person public comment. Do we have anything online? Nothing online. Okay, that brings us to item 10, reports of district organizations, starting with our student advisory board.
Hello, everyone. Our SAB higher position elections, we're calling it the cabinet. They were held and concluded between last board meeting and today. We have elected a secretary, event coordinators, 2 of them from each city, a comprehensive media team, and that includes a visual media, marketing, and newsletter committee. And we have 2 ambassadors at each school site that we have. So I'm glad and I'm looking forward to working with this super cool cabinet we have now that we have 100 students, over 100 students. It's new. It's going to be a little bit challenging at first, but I'm sure we'll get over it. And hopefully me and Mia can lean on this team a little more and kind of relieve the stress off of us and our advisors' backs. And our next SAB meeting is November 14th at Mitchell Middle School. Thank you.
Great, sounds fantastic. Thank you for the update. We'll go to California School Employees Association. Mr. Korn.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Swanson. Not much to report tonight. MOUs 2 and 4 will be up for ratification next Wednesday, the 23rd. That's all I have to report right now.
Sounds good, thank you. Folsom Cordova Education Association, Ms. Sansabach. Welcome.
Small group. All right, good evening, families, board members, staff, and teachers present, and everybody online. I want to give a congratulations to the Community School Committee and staff on the recognition they received recently. The State Board of Education reached out to the community schools, RTAC, to see if there was some district making strides in this arena, and our district was selected to present in November. This program reflects collaboration, communications, and a willingness to listen to all. There was a quote that was heard during the Community School Steering Committee yesterday afternoon that resonated with me that went something like, "Not assuming I know what you need, but ask the stakeholders, which include families, students, and staff, what is needed and how best to decide how to deliver those needs." Monday of this week, there was a professional development day incorporated into the instructional calendar. Certificated staff attended sessions on the art and science of teaching, ELA math and literacy, solution trees seminars like the 15-day challenge, PLC training, and much more. Though this training is important work of FCUSD is focusing upon, it doesn't seem to match the quote that just was stated yesterday. This was not a collaborative effort with stakeholders except for a few sites, notably Mills Middle School, who had an 80% or higher attendance rate compared to the other 331 other teachers who did not attend this PD throughout the district. I don't know the reasons why there is such a high percentage of teachers out, but FCUSD and FCEA are collaborating to find out data to compare attendance with this year when it was part of the instructional calendar versus last year's October PD, which was voluntary, and creating a survey for administrators and certificated staff to discover more about what they need and how FCUSD can deliver it better. Thank you.
Thank you. Folsom Cordova Leadership Association.
Good evening. Good evening, Superintendent Swanson, Board President Hui, and board members. Good evening. This evening, I would actually like to highlight the FCLA classified leaders who are attending the 2024-2025 AXA Classified Educational Leaders Academy. This opportunity is not only a testament to their dedication and hard work, but also truly a significant step towards enhancing our leadership capabilities within the district. So this academy is known for its comprehensive curriculum that focuses on development of leadership skills, fostering a collaborative environment, promoting innovative practices. Our classified leaders gain valuable insight into management strategies, communication techniques, problem-solving skills that are crucial for their roles. Investing in the professional development of our classified leaders is an investment in the future of our district. It demonstrates our commitment to nurturing talent and ensuring our leadership team is well prepared to meet the challenges of today's educational landscape. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Pearson. And District English Learner Advisory Committee.
Good evening, Superintendent, President Hui, members of the board, and my esteemed colleagues. I do have a report tonight for DLAC. I have been out coincidentally on a couple of Thursdays, so I've missed you, and hopefully you look forward to my report, our report today from DLAC. So we have a couple of things. I'm going to go back a little bit and go and proceed forward from there. We actually met as a DLAC team. Our first meeting for the year was September 10th, and so it seems like so long ago. My goodness, where has the time gone? But it's our opening meeting, and prior to that, the officers get together, give another final approval of the agenda, but most importantly, the year-long schedule. That also includes the parent summits. At that time, we had special guests in attendance, our superintendent, Eric Swanson. It was great to have you there. We also had Marie Pollack, our coordinator of expanded learning. But the focus was on the engagement policy, which is an annual review. Not the most exciting, but definitely very important piece of information that we share. We also spoke to the parents about the fact that the ELAC schedules should be posted, and principals are doing a really good job of rounding up committee members so that they can have the schedules up and available for members of the community to access. And we also centered on our parent summit theme. which continues, of course, to be engagement and really looking at a theme that our superintendent has brought, which is the warm demanders. And there's so many in our district, and we wanted to uncover that throughout the year on what that looks like in our district. And we also were able to highlight the opening of our Saturday school. Just a fun fact, Saturday school, especially Spanish, has been open for over 20 years. We have approximately 20 Saturdays for that, and parents look forward to that in the community. We also opened up an immigrant school 3 years ago, you might recall, and that is definitely in full swing. And thankfully, with Kristen Natalano and Brian Zaboda, they are teachers in charge of our Saturday school program, so we're able to discuss that quickly. On October 8th was our second DLAC meeting this year, and we were able to discuss the fact that we're having a federal program review. And why it's important for ELAC parents or the members of our English learner community is that often one of the areas of focus is English learners. We have 4 schools that will be reviewed specifically, along with many district programs, of which includes English learners. And those schools are Cordova Gardens, Cordova Villa, White Rock Elementary, and Mills Middle. So send them lots of positive vibes. They're working really hard. And so those are our DLAC meeting updates, but many of you probably received this already. You've seen it earlier. We're looking forward to it. It's almost here. I know, I can't believe it. November 2nd, our Parent Summit. We're excited. We're featuring our special focus on Saturday is our expanded learning programs. We're going to have a lot of fun-filled activities, and there's always going to be some budget activity that I like to throw out there with layers of cake and such. But we'll also be looking forward to having our superintendent. I think Angela Griffin will be helping us get better acquainted with Parent Square. So thank you. That's our report.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. On to item 11, discussion. We'll go to item A, our only item under there, staffing update on bus drivers. I handed that to Mr. Martin.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much. Yes, and so the board had asked that we come in once we kind of got into the school year to see where we were with staffing. As we had shared last school year, coming into this year, that we were having quite an impact on the ability to provide transportation for all students, and specifically with regards to our special ed students. And so we did reduce some routes and made some changes with regards to those pieces. So we were going to give an update of kind of where we are. I think there were also questions about kind of how our hiring process is going and how we are trying to recruit for new drivers. And so just a little update of where we are right now. We have 55 routes, 15 of which are general education routes and 40 are special education where it's required as part of an IEP for students. Of that, we are currently driving 49 buses, 5 vans, and 1 SUV. And part of the reason why we are driving the vans and the SUV is because we don't have enough licensed bus drivers. So we're trying to still provide the service as best we can with the capacity we have. And just so you know, we also are purchasing another van as we speak so that we have more capacity as well in that avenue. You can see we did eliminate 6 gen ed routes last year by enforcing the existing distance policy that the board had already put in place many years ago. And so that impacted primarily Folsom Middle and Sutter Middle School. But since then, we actually had to add 4 more gen ed routes, primarily for the growth south of Highway 50, both on the Rancho Cordova and the Folsom side, just so you know. So even though, so the net on that was only 2 gen ed route reduction, whereas we were hoping to have more, but because of the capacity and outside of the distance requirements, we had to provide additional transportation in those areas. You can also see special ed increased from 37 to 40 routes, so that was an increase as well. Currently, the way we have staffing, if we were fully staffed, we would have 6 drivers that are what are called variable drivers, or more or less they are pools, and then they cover any absences or any specialized activities we need to have so that they can release and cover drivers. Unfortunately, we're down enough drivers that all of those people that are supposed to be variable are having to drive routes. And so we don't have anybody to cover absences. And that's been an ongoing issue that we have not for just this year, but just an ongoing issue. We've been averaging somewhere in the neighborhood of almost 11 drivers out a day, and that was something that was provided by Human Resources. Some of those are folks that are on some type of leave of absence, and so that's an automatic built-in, but also just general absences from day to day that we have with the transportation department. I would say that we would like to work on that and try to work with our labor partners to try to see if we can reduce absences, and that's something we're working on. But I'll be truthful, our management team most days are still driving almost daily, so it's very hard to work on some of those other pieces because they're actually driving anywhere from 6 to 8 hours a day as instead of being able to do their duties as management team because of coverage issues.
Ms. Martin?
Yeah.
I'm assuming if there's 10.66 drivers out per day, should I assume that if we have 55 routes, we should have 55 drivers each
Yes.
day? Okay, so
Yeah.
we're down almost 11 out of 55 every day.
Right, and so what we have, we're down in that regard. So we have up to 5 or 6 people in the office that can drive. And then we also then run additional routes where someone will go into a second pickup, some of those things. And then we have potentially some students that have to arrive late, or we have to pick up people extra early to try to cover for all those activities. So we try to make that as best we can, but within the last week, I know of at least 3 days where we didn't have enough drivers to cover all routes and some students. So we reach out, normally it's on our smaller routes with special ed students, where we reach out to the parents and we let them know either they can drive their child themselves on those days, or we just pick them up late. And then they arrive later in the day, in the morning. So it's not ideal by any means.
No, and I imagine normally we don't have that information until the morning.
Yes, yeah, it's normally the morning of. In fact, we have somebody that comes in as early as, I believe it's 4:30 to handle those calls and try to coordinate all the absences that are in place. And I should say, Kathleen Jones is our transportation director. She is here today to also be able to answer any questions that may come up. So sorry about that, Cece. Thanks. So just kind of continuing on, special ed, one of the goals of some of the adjustments we had talked about was to try to reduce the ride times of our students, specifically on special education. So what we have seen is with going to neighborhood schools, we have seen some benefit of that, but there are still students on some of the far ends of the district where when we're dropping off, 8 to 10 students, and they are the last student on the far end of the district, you have to remember that with the special ed students, a lot of times it does require us to stop at the location and then help the student get off the bus, drop them, take them to the door, and then move on to the next student. So it's not a quick drop. And so just because of distances, some students are exceeding over an hour one way. So there's about 50 students at this point. And so that's actually backwards of where we were hoping to get to, but also because we are seeing more and more students south of Highway 50, but then they're going up to, Folsom Middle School, that drive and distance is quite a ways out. And then we also have students as far as American River and Canyon up in the north, and then of course Mather Heights down in the south. So those are long distances, and when they're the first student, they have to be the first student on the bus, then we have 7 or 8 more students we have to pick up. It adds up on the time. And so that's something we're looking at now. We have about an hour and a half ride for about 20 students, which is not something we want to continue to be able to do if at all possible. So you can see there that the transportation office staff, including the supervisor and director, have been driving almost every day. At the beginning of the year, we were doing a little better, but as the daily absences kind of crept up on us, we've had some issues with the capacity of being able to provide. So other impacts of the current staffing issues, transportation for field trips, sports activities, those have been limited. We have been able to do most of the field trips to date within the school day because the drivers are done with their routes. But anything that's outside of the day is pretty much something that has to be chartered at this point, or we do shuttling, or with a lot of sports teams, at the secondary levels, they'll use their vans. Some of them have vans, and they'll transport the students that way, or they'll have parents transport. So,
I have a quick comment on that
Sure.
one. Is there a way, because I know we've had this happen a few times, where we're getting them there and then we're finding out when we're actually at the game that the bus isn't gonna be able to come back and pick up. So then we've had a few instances where the parents we've been kind of scrambling
Oh,
on
really?
site.
Okay.
So I just don't know if there's like a better way that we can communicate, like, hey,
Yeah.
we're only gonna be able to, because it's like, I think some of them, and because of this crunch on the fill-in and everything, they've exceeded their hours, right? And so
Correct.
it's like so we've had instances where it's like, hey, if you guys aren't back by 8 o'clock, but if the game doesn't start till 7, we have to leave you.
Yes.
So then
Yeah.
we're kind of in a scramble then with parents of like, hey, how many seats do you have? How many seats do you have? And then the authorization to drive other students and things like that. So there's just a way that we could, like, I know last week were able to communicate that ahead of time. So there was plans that were able to made, like, hey, we're going to be able to get you up, but not back. So we need to make sure that
Right.
that's all done. But if there's just a better way that we could communicate to the teams, if it's not going to be both ways,
Sure, of
especially
course.
on that secondary backwards trip.
Yeah, and we normally, I thought the process normally for us is we're communicating up front if we cannot provide transportations in both directions.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's communication that's not getting to the parents through the transportation department, through the coaches, or what the process is, but we
Yeah.
can follow up on that for sure.
Yeah. There just seems to be a gap. And it could be too, like I said, because it might not be, we might have had to call people in early to cover those morning routes. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so then it's the exceeding of the hours.
And then
So
it
I'm not
changed the
Yeah,
time.
so I think it just changes. So I'm not sure
Okay.
that it's not like someone not doing a job and not being intentional about like, oh, hey, we didn't communicate that. I think it's just is that we've just exceeded the hours, right? And we don't kind of know when that's going to happen.
Right.
Because it's so last minute with the absences. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So.
And what Ms. Larrett is speaking to is the fact that drivers can only drive within a certain amount of time each day that they have a capacity on. And so if they exceed a certain threshold, then they can't drive anymore for that day. So that's something that we have to balance as well. But thank you for sharing that. And we'll follow up on that one for sure. The other issue that we've had is on the general ed side. We have approximately about 150 students who are on a waiting list, meaning they meet the qualifications for transportation, but we don't currently have space in our current capacity. That would be equivalent to about at least 2 additional routes, depending on where all the students lie, but at a minimum. And so at this point, we're just, again, transportation is not a required service. It is an optional service. So we prioritize special education first, and then we had open registration. And then once we're at capacity, we have to cut it off. And so that's where we're at right at this point. But we definitely have additional students who would like to participate in transportation services that we can offer at this time. Also, we used to initially have daily riders, so students could buy tickets just on a daily basis. But to do that, we would have to have existing capacity, and we just don't have capacity to do that either. So that's been gone for the last couple of years. I think the first year I came in, we actually eliminated that one. So it's just some other impacts related to the shortfall of staffing, right? And we wanted to make sure everybody was aware of all of these things. So now I'm just going to jump into, and I'm going to share, Dr. Ogden is not here, but Linda Thurlow is the Executive Director of Administrative Services. She supports the HR team. She can answer questions with me along this line, but I would just recognize the HR team and some of the recruitment efforts that we've tried to do. You can see we have job board. We have 38 people that have at least shown interest for transportation since July 1st as a transportation position. I will tell you though, and I think I've shared this before, going from interest into it to completing the entire process to become a licensed bus driver is quite intensive. And so we normally see on a class of 10 or so folks, we normally see 2 or 3 people potentially complete the class is kind of where we are. So normally what happens is we get a large application pool. There is an introductory meeting explaining of the requirements of bus driver. So some of the biggest things are obviously you have to be able to drive, right? But also you have to eventually apply for a license where it changes the requirements. So like there are more strict requirements. You cannot not have a DUI or a blood alcohol level above a 0.0. So, the legal level is 0.08. And so you have things of that nature. So that scares some people off. Obviously, we do random drug testing associated with those positions. It's the only position in the district that requires this random drug testing, and they're in a pool. So that scares folks off as well. And then just the requirements, they are going to be in class for about a month, and then they have behind the wheel training for about a month. Now, during that time, we will pay the person to go through. They'll be hired as a cadet. They can drive vans. and then, of course, all of our normal clearance processes. So that whittles away probably at least a half to 2/3 of the people that show general interest. And then we have a class that those people actually participate in. We have to have a licensed trainer, and unfortunately in our district, not unfortunately, but our only trainer is Cece or Kathleen. And so as she's also driving and she's the director, her prior position has still not been filled. We've had that position open for quite a while, and that's just across the state. Licensed trainers are hard to find, and so what we've been doing is bringing in outside folks who are retired that have those qualifications, and they contract with us. So we actually had somebody who did our first class. They had to step aside. We were bringing in somebody else. So our goal is to try to offer a class monthly to try to clear those people as quickly as we can to get people through. But that is quite an intensive process. And so we're working on that, and I'll talk later on about some of those, kind of where we are with all of that. But you can see all the different Google jobs, LinkedIn. A lot of people look online, so we try to get on all job boards possible. We also have what's Handshake, which is through the local community college and the universities locally that are looking for students who are looking for jobs. EdJoin, which is the website that is mostly used for certificated staff, but all education positions are put on EdJoin. But if you're not in the education world, you wouldn't know to look there. So that's why we do all of the other location areas under Team Taylor. You can also see we worked with a recruitment company to try to see if their Insight Global is a recruitment partner. And so they're trying to see if they can find us licensed certified bus drivers. They had 6 candidates. You can see there were 2 in process. And then they've exhausted all viable candidates they had as well. So we're trying as many avenues as possible. And I'll just continue on some additional recruitment efforts. You can see we've been at several recruitment fairs. You can see those there. There was a Save Mart at a distribution center in Roseville. We did have 7 applicants. All of those fell through, just so you know. So we are continuing to try to recruit at any opportunity that we have. We are planning to do a transportation-specific job fair in February. We were planning to do it this year before the end of the calendar year. But unfortunately, our trainer wasn't able to continue training with us. And so as we're bringing a new trainer on, we wanted to make sure that person was in place before we do the recruitment fair. So we pushed that out a little bit till after the holiday season. Hopefully by then everybody will need a job because they'll have Christmas and all the costs associated with that. There was a conversation I believe someone brought up about SAC RT and that they have some retirees or other people that might be interested in participating. And so our classified manager, Roxanne, she reached out and is working to distribute information to them so that we can communicate to that group as well. So as you can see, we've got a lot of irons in the fire. We're trying to recruit out in a lot of different ways to try to see if we can get interested parties to do the process. And again, we're willing to pay folks from the get-go, even though they're not licensed drivers, to get them in. You can see there's our rate of pay. We feel like we're competitive with our rates of pay. We also, as we talked about, at least every other month, we were going to try to do monthly, but again, our trainer fell through, so we're continuing that. But at least every other month, we're offering a full paid training classes for our interested parties. In 23-24, you can see we had 5 classes, 27 applications, 10 went through the training, and they're all drivers for us at this point. And when we say applications, those are the ones that actually had applications that met all the requirements and started the classes. We had a bigger pool than that of people that just applied. So far, we've had 1 class. We had 11 applications and 5 participants. We hope, I don't know, Cece, if we have an update on the 2 that are 2 folks that were going to do their testing. Did they test through CHP yet? Okay, so we've got a new bus driver then. So they go from being a cadet over to a driver, and so we'll continue doing that. But we'll take the wins where we can get them at this point, and try to build the capacity back up. You can also see here the driver trainer program that we have. Again, we're not only paying for them to take the class, we'll pay them to be we're paying for the class, we're paying them an hourly rate to be in the class, to be a cadet with us, so then they can drive vans for us. And then on top of that, we're willing to pay all their fees associated with getting clearance. Because another hiccup we've seen is some folks initially to get in, you have to get fingerprinted, you have to do other requirements to get cleared. There's a drug testing, there's a physical, and so that's cost to that person. And so sometimes they're not able to pay that. And so we're working with them to try to help cover that cost as well. We're trying to remove as many barriers as possible to get as many people in that we can. The other thing we did was when we bid on our routes, we increased all of our routes, so we had no route that was under 6 hours. So every position, every route that the bus drivers bid on was at least 6 hours a day. We used to have routes as low as 5 hours or 4.5, I think. And so we're trying to make it so that, there's enough hours there that it makes it interesting for the drivers. And I will share, we got down to, I think, the last 5 drivers, and there was still 7.5, and there was even one 8-hour position available. So there is the ability to access 8-hour-a-day jobs for the majority of our drivers if they want to take those responsibilities. The 8-hour-a-day job is the variable job where you have to jump from, you're more or less a sub-driver and you jump around. And so not all the drivers are interested in that, but there is an opportunity for a full-time job for most of our drivers if they had chosen that when we were doing our bidding. So we do think there's a lot of opportunity there for them as well. So just kind of continuing on. So just looking at, you can see here we have drivers in process from other districts. We intentionally try not to poach from other school districts, right? But we know the realities of that world. And so we do have 2 cleared drivers, which obviously that's a win for us because then they can immediately jump behind the wheel of a bus if they have all of their licensing. We have 2 drivers in process, and I don't know, this was done a couple weeks ago, so I don't know where we are at this exact moment, but we have 2 drivers that will be hopefully starting in this month from other school districts. So that's a positive for us. We have, as we shared before, the 5 cadets in process. One of them just finished up, so that will actually be a new driver there. Or I'm sorry, cadets in process. Those are ones being cleared to become cadets. So they're the ones that are just starting the classrooms right now, I'm sorry. We have 5 new drivers starting this year. 2 of them are actually existing drivers. One was someone who retired and came back. Another one was someone who left to go to another career field and decided to come back. So that's a positive for us. You can see we have the 6 cadets. As I shared, one of those cadets is now a driver, so that's great. And you can see that the total current drivers is getting up there. But again, we have to have more than the number of routes because we need to cover all of our absences and leaves and all the things that happen. And we don't have a big enough pool for that at this point. And so far, year to date, we have 2 separations from our district. So that kind of gives you an idea of kind of where we are staffing wise. We've been more than willing. I know we've had some community members reach out about some recruitment options. We've connected those people to the HR team to share. So if there's either job fairs or there's other ways to communicate, if people are willing to let us put signage or put information, our maintenance vehicles on the back of our trailers, they all say that we're recruiting for bus drivers. All of that, we still are putting buses out at key strategic locations to put signs out as well. To see if we can get people. We're going to the fairs. We're posting anywhere and everywhere. And to be honest, we're no different than majority of the school districts, and not only in the state of California, but throughout the United States. In that it's a very specific job. It requires very specialized training. It takes a certain personality and ability to be able to drive a bus with multiple students on it, that you have to pay attention to them, pay attention to the road, meet all the safety requirements, know all the rules. Just in the last year that I've been working with the team, just learning all the rules and requirements for where a bus stop has to go, how the signage has to be. We can't put signs on the outside of our bus. CHP won't allow that. There's so many different pieces that come along, and it is very heavily restrictive on what we can or cannot do. So we have to make sure, because we have audits frequently with the CHP and other agencies. So that's kind of an update of where we are. Love to answer any questions, any other feedback or that the board would like to provide.
Thanks. Any questions from the board?
I just had a quick question in terms of the city bus. Is that being used? Have you gotten any report from the city in terms of
You know what? We have not
usage?
followed back up with the city. They definitely were very helpful and supportive with RT. And so they were able to add an extra stop for Folsom Middle. And I don't know the ridership on that at this point. It would be interesting. And it will be some, that's a great idea. I should follow up on that. I know Angela and I worked extensively with them at the beginning of the year, but we never really got back on the loop on that. I know they were even putting a stop in at Folsom, like cutting the curb and doing work there for it. And so, yeah, I think that is something we should follow up on as well, so.
Good. I just have one question. And you mentioned it sounds like maybe other districts near us are having the same issue, so maybe this question is moot. But
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's any precedent or if we've looked into contracting with other districts that might have an abundance of drivers.
There are outside third-party vendors that do offer some transportation services. When we looked into it, it didn't really work well for us and coordinate for what our needs were. Because also one of the biggest things we see a lot is there's a lot of variableness to the routes. So weekly, we may have to change, especially with students coming on the special ed routes, which is the majority of our routes. The gen ed routes are pretty straightforward, right? We have bus stops here and there. Unless you have 5 students, we're not going to add a bus stop. And right now, we don't have capacity anyway. But on the sped routes, we pretty consistently have changes on a lot of the routes. And so a lot of that flexibility and some of those options, they weren't able to provide for us. So it's something we've looked at. Other districts providing service at this point, I don't know about that. I know like up in El Dorado County, the high school district provides service to a lot of the smaller elementaries. But we haven't reached out to see coverage-wise if that would work for anybody, to be honest. Okay. But something we can definitely look into as an option. And there is a group that the transportation directors meet. And so that might be something, has anybody got capacity to pick up or provide? I know, we have in the past provided transportation service for other entities for other purposes, but yeah, we could look into that.
I appreciate it. Any other questions from the board? Okay. We'll take public comments. I don't see any in person. Are there any online? None online. All right. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Brings us to item 12, Superintendent's Report.
Awesome.
Superintendent Swanson.
Thank you, President. I'll start off the report today to talk a little bit, as most of you on the dais know, that there was no school for students on Monday. Look to our 2 student board members, and I think most of you have students in our schools. We did provide a professional development, and Jeanette touched on a few of the offerings for certificated staff during the FCEA report. We did have some of our classified teammates were invited that are in certain classifications, and a couple of those trainings that were offered. The titles were Empowering Students to Meaningfully Engage, De-escalation Scripts and Trauma-Informed Practices, Compassionate Systems, Bus Evacuations and Accident Procedures, CC back there, and Environment Foundations and Supports for Preschool Students. I just cover this to say thank you to the curriculum instruction team and everyone else that helped them. It's a big lift, right, to get a full day of professional development planned throughout the district to make sure that our team is meaningfully engaged in learning that meets their needs. I definitely acknowledge what you said, Jeanette, and I'm excited about the survey to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our teachers and other staff members by that. But I zipped around and hit as many sites as I could. Saw Kanan at his site, and there was a really awesome training happening over there. But I saw a lot of staff engage in a day of learning, which is a priority for us in getting 1% better each day. So the second part of my report is last Tuesday, I hit my 100 days. People are like, oh, are you counting? Like it's a bad thing. No, I actually had a 100-day entry plan, and so it was important to count the days. And I have a report that I'm going to be submitting to the board, but I'll give it some daylight here, is that we spent time sort of logging all the engagements and linking the different pieces of media that were used or the slide decks that were used. And this is from not only when I started in July, but a little bit before that in my initial engagements after being named in May. And you can keep scrolling, Robin. This will be shared with you, but I wanted to make sure, and this will be shared also with the public to show you that I've been busy, and just the right amount of busy, because I've had such a great opportunity meeting so many of our teammates and community members and elected officials, and learning about all the amazing things that are going on in our district and in our community, as well as some of the challenges that are in front of us and that we're going to face together and overcome for our students and our families. So with that, there is a video that the communications team put together. It's it's a lot of me, which makes me feel a little uncomfortable, but I think that just focus on the students and the teachers and the principals in the video. But I would like to especially thank the communications team, Angela Griffin, Jamina Vrioni, David Dean, and Robin Mandeville, who's going to push play on this video. Thank you, Robin. Hello, I'm Eric Swanson. I'm honored to be your new superintendent in the Folsom Cordova Unified School District. I have just concluded my first 100 days, and I am excited to share some of the learnings. In my first 100 days, I had the incredible opportunity to visit all of our school sites and take a tour with our school principals. I learned from them about what their school is working on, the bright spots, and the challenges in their school communities. Also, I spent time at all of our auxiliary locations in our district, visiting with staff and connecting with our teammates and getting to know about what they are focused on this year. I've also had the opportunity to spend time out in the community, learning from many of you about what you care most deeply about. What I've learned in all of my school visits and community engagements is that we truly and deeply care for our students, for each other, and for the work that we are so committed to. I also learned that we all have a keen eye on excellence and that we all want what is the very best for each and every one of our students and for each other. I learned that our team has worked diligently for several years to ensure that our schools are set up for success, focused on ensuring all of our teammates have the tools necessary for them to do their jobs successfully each day, have opportunities to access training to learn and grow on the job, and have the on-site coaching to make sure they feel supported in their daily work. It is clear to me that this district is committed to supporting our students and each other. With all of that, we have some room to grow. We still have students who are behind in their grade level standards for both English language arts and mathematics. And we still have students who don't feel connected to their school experience. In appreciating our strengths and acknowledging the challenges in front of us, after my first 100 days, I have a great deal of hope. In any system with a foundation of committed teammates, both working in and on our system and living in the community, it is truly a great place to start. I am confident that as we concentrate on getting 1% better each day with the motto of when we know better, we do better, we can continue to provide our students with an opportunity to be excellent each and every day. So how do the best get better? We already have a foundation of incredibly committed adults and a committed community. When that's true, it's important that the system itself takes a look in the mirror and acknowledges there is room to create more efficiencies, more alignment, and more coherence, so our systems are able to respond more quickly and decisively in addressing our student and adult needs to make sure we're meeting all folks where they are at in the moment with the goal of exceeding expectations so that they have the best chance of growing, meeting, and exceeding the standard that is expected from them in their grade level or on their job. As I've mentioned, I've had an opportunity to meet so many of you, and I look forward to future opportunities to meet you. Whether that be celebrating our students in the classroom, on the stage, on the field, or in the community, anytime we have an opportunity to connect and celebrate our kids is a good one. Thank you so much for this opportunity to serve as your superintendent. So as you can tell, thank you so much. I was gonna say, as you can tell, I just hate this job, right? By that video, I feel so honored. So thank you for that. It's being able to spend time on campuses is there's nothing better than that. So next up for me is to continue to consult with the different decision makers in our district and to continue to shape and learn from them around our strategic priorities, which then I will bring to you on October 28th at a special board meeting. And I'll just say, I don't know if we will, in that 3 hours together hit the finish line, but I'll definitely have something to present and get your feedback and listen to the board and what direction you want to set for the district. And then we will get something to be able to share with the larger community before too long to really just really galvanize and clarify our North Star so the rest of the system can really focus and organize its work in supporting our students in meeting and exceeding their goals for themselves as well as our adults. So that is my superintendent's report. Really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's hard to imagine it's been 100 days, over 100 days already.
Yeah, I think it's like 108 or 9 today, yeah.
Yeah, but definitely we're so appreciative for the work you're doing. So thank you, and that was a great video. Thank you to all those that put that together. We will move on to item 13, board member committee reports, starting with Ms. George.
So I don't have much to say, but at the last meeting, I forgot to say this, but Folsom High School had something called Day of Understanding with keynote speaker Keith Hawkins, and it was just a day where all the grades came together and they just learned about leadership, how to be kind and treat others with respect, and just that knowledge that Mr. Swanson was saying in that video, we know by doing, or we do our best when we know. So that was good. Our football team went 58-0, so that was very good. Second quarter just started for Folsom High School. We're not on the quarter system, but quarter one just ended, and very excited to work with SAB, all the leaders, and more than just a secretary. So that's going to be very fun.
Thank you. Mr. Merrill.
I like that video, Mr. Swanson. I actually recognized a few of my teachers and my campus, actually. I like that. And I'm looking forward to your next 100 days and another video for the next 100 days. On Monday during Indigenous Peoples Day, it was Tuesday. I took this day off of school and I went to a symposium held by CASC. It's kind of like a branch of CSBA. I learned about student rights. It was very beneficial and informational. I was really surprised at the stuff I learned. I got a whole book of student rights. It's like, oh, did you know blank? And it was some surprising stuff. And I'll definitely be bringing up in these SAB meetings, and I think it's a good thing for SAB to really hone in on and be like, what are these rights that students are being denied that are in ed code and stuff, that it's become so normalized that it's not in our student handbooks or our board policy. So I'm looking forward to that being one of the first few projects of SAB this year. We have senior night for Cordova's football team tomorrow night, so I invite all of you to come out to the stadium and watch that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lefthouse.
Congratulations, Mr. Swanson. I know why your kids cried when they watched that video. Yeah. So I met with the equity team, the district equity team this past week, and it was a group of individuals that I could have spent hours talking to, and finally they kind of kicked me out the door, okay, you're done. We have actually meeting to do too. But in the time that I was there, I greatly admire the work of the team of certificated and classified staff that dedicate their time, effort, and energy to this work. When I was in the district, it was only certificated in that the equity team. So the voices of classified in that room were loud and heard, and so I'm glad that that's kind of how that team has evolved. While I was there, I got to see their comprehensive strategic plan, which included the team's vision for FCUSD and a plan for implementation. And a few of the things we talked about were having leaders versus bosses, testing calendars, future video projects and storytelling, how to hear everyone's voice, recruitment and retention, and valuing our students, parents, and teachers, and the work we have to do to get there where we want to be as a district. So it was very, very valuable, and I look forward to hearing more from them as the year goes on.
Thank you. Ms. Larrett.
I actually haven't had any committee meetings in the last 2 weeks, so I actually had one yesterday. I missed community schools ones, but I had a report work deadline that kind of got dropped to me at the last minute, so unfortunately I wasn't able to attend. But amazing video. It's awesome to just see our kids so happy and thriving. I mean, I've kind of noticed it since the beginning, first day of school. It just this year feels like it's had a sense of normalcy to it that I feel like we've kind of gotten over some of the hump of COVID, and it's just been nice to see the kids just really thriving and enjoying and just loving being in classes, and just really appreciate all of our staff that make the day great for them. When your student comes home and they're just so happy with their day, I'm just so appreciative of everybody who's working towards that for my kids. So just wanted to say thank you to all of them, and that's it for me.
Great, thank you so much. I attended the policy committee meeting last week on October 7th. We discussed a laundry list of policies, including Board Bylaw 9323, meeting conduct, Board Policy 0410, non-discrimination in district programs and activities, Board Policy 1312.1, complaints concerning district employees, Board Policy 1312.3, uniform complaint procedure, Board Policy 4030, non-discrimination employment, and Board Policy 4111, 4211, and 4311, recruitment and selection. We also had a really interesting conversation that I certainly want to make sure the board is updated on. Months ago, it came up at this board, I believe Mr. Rita brought it up, the idea of a land trust and what that might look like. I'll explain a little bit more of that later. So we had legal counsel at our policy meeting, represented the meeting. They provided counsel on the question of whether the district would be legally permitted to donate surplus real property to a tribal land trust. The short answer is probably not, and it's complicated. A little bit of the longer answer is that under the law, this would be a little bit difficult to pull off. And so at the board policy committee, we did discuss the possibility of maybe bringing that forward as an item for the board. I'll talk about that under future agenda items. Not to put in as a policy, but maybe to have a conversation around, is this something we want to advocate for with the legislature? Because we felt like in that meeting, that would be the place to start this conversation, rather than trying to bend existing law to make it fit what we wanted. So just an update on that. Like I said, I'll bring that up again as we get further into the agenda, but I want to make sure you guys all knew that. That's the only update or report for me. So we're on to item 14, advanced planning. Item A, our next board meeting is going to be on October 28th. It's a special board study session about governance, team leadership. Superintendent Swanson mentioned something about that during his comments. That will be at 5 p.m. right here. Our next regularly scheduled board meeting is November 7th, 2024. Item B, our 12-month board calendar is there for your review. Item C, suggested future agenda items. I will roll into that first since I've already mentioned it. Would like to see if the board would be open to, at some point in the future, I don't think it has to be immediate, but that we do have this discussion around just advocating that we could look at the possibility of donating property if that time comes. So unless there's any objection, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, we might want to check with Mr. Clark too in terms of CSBA, because we have a whole ledge action group within CSBA. So he's probably more aware of how that works exactly, but that is something too that if we as a board are saying, yes, this might be something, then we might want to bring it further, because then there's advocacy across the state with the different legislators. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Would it be wise to wait on putting that on the future agenda item until we talk to Mr. Clark, or something we would have?
I'd say we could put it on there and he'll still have enough time to
talk about it. Okay, perfect. Good. If there's no other objections, then that's maybe something we can get on a future agenda item.
Yeah, that's fine. I think following the direction, I'm happy to reach out to Trustee Clark and relay the message and see what he can find out from CSBA, and then we'll bring that information back.
Perfect.
Okay.
That's good. Are there any other suggested future agenda items from other board members?
After the equity meeting and discussion, I would love to see sort of maybe informational, but in terms of testing calendars and how those are decided upon, and if we are being equitable in terms of our testing calendars for future. We know that this year's calendar dates are already set, but looking ahead to the future.
Can you say more? Testing calendars?
Like CASP testing and just how we set the standardized testing in the spring.
I think that's a great idea. It's left to us. Great.
I can be more specific with Dr. Huber. He probably already knows, but.
Yeah, I'm good on assessment calendar. I know that CASP, we have a window, and AP's fixed, right? And there's other things.
Yeah, so I know it's navigating a lot of those things, but specifically what was coming up was cultural holidays falling within our testing week and how that impacts our students, our educators that maybe celebrate those cultural holidays, and the potential impact on our scores because of it too. So.
Thank you.
Great, okay. Thank you, Ms. Loftus. Any others? Okay. That will bring us into item 15, just recess closed session. We don't need to do that. We finished our business in the first closed session. So we'll scooch all the way down to item 19, adjournment. Unless there's any objection, we will adjourn. Not hearing any, we are adjourned.